of those positions, how would you react? Did you have the capacity of each of them or no? Meaning that sometimes we have the capacity of obeying Allah when everything is going well. I'm in a good mood until nobody bothers me. You know, sometimes I've seen people that when they want to self-compliment, they say, you know what, Sheikh, I'm the type of person, until nobody comes after me, until nobody disturbs me, I'm good. The moment somebody starts hitting my nerve, if somebody's pushing my buttons, you don't want to see my other side. So, okay, so your story and a rock is the same. A rock, until it's left in a corner, is not going to just stand its own and do something. When someone is dealing and using it as a tool, then well, okay, so your first position in the rock is almost the same. Some people are worse than that. Even if you don't bother them, they bother you. That's the worst of the worst, obviously. But the goal was that for us to know how we're going to react at the time of hardship, at the time of scarcity, at the time of calamities, as well as at the time of peace and comfort. So when we think about why some believers have difficult death, what difficulty we're talking about? We're not talking about the ihtidar stage. We're not talking about the stage that leave this dunya. Someone may be sick. They could be dealing with, terminal illness for a long time. We cannot make a conclusion the reason they got this illness is because of their sin. So many of these illnesses that people deal with is the cause of human beings. How many of these great pharmaceuticals and many of these corporations, there's a human being behind it. One of them was Johnson & Johnson. Again, as parents, you probably, not just as parents, I think as a human being, most likely their product is all over the place. Among many of the cases that they were linked to causing cancer in children was in their product, baby powder. This is not conspiracy, this is actually out there. So much more is about what human being did. Teflons, forever chemicals. When we came up with the idea of freezers and keeping our food cold, and what we're releasing to the air, and what we're doing with ozone layer, and the result of that is when the skin cancers. There's so much. There's a cause and effect. We as human beings contributed to this. What we put in our bodies. After a long time, I know that people, they're not very happy that their Cheetos are now being altered because now they decided they're not going to use this specific ingredients, right? Is it red 5? Red 40. Why? Oh, this is linked to cancer. It's not that if somebody now is suffering from it. Same as when you look at people who are victims of chemical weapons. It took him years. What Saddam did to people, the Kurds, with the chemical weapon. For generations they're going to suffer. It's not that, oh, Allah chose them to suffer. No, this is human being causing the suffering. But when it comes to the time of death, that's a different story. Someone may seem very peaceful. Going back to that, oh, this person, we know they're very corrupt. Right? We know that, God forbid, this is nothing hidden. I did not investigate. I was not nosy. This is a tyrant that was publicly committing war crimes and committing horrible things. And at the time of death, the video came out where people say that he was very, very peaceful in his deathbed. The answer to that is, when we speak of a difficult death, we're not talking about biological death. We're talking about the separation of the soul from body. So somebody actually could have their eyes closed and they'd be in the midst of agony and pain. Imagine people who are in sleep. Not everybody who have, nightmares, they're shaking and they're, and they're kicking. There are people who have nightmares, and when you look at them from outside, they're very peaceful. That happens quite often. You may have the personal experience yourself. You may be drenched in sweat, and you wake up. It's not like that anyone notice around you. That's just a dream. And it's not the body, it's not the other realm, it's not that one foot is here, one foot in the other. No, it's just in this lifetime. That's why in tradition says, sleep is the second death. is a good reminder. If you want to see a way to how you can feel death, every single night is a form of that detachment. It's not complete, obviously, because you're still living, but you're getting a sample. So for a mu'min, that separation is easy, which no one from outside can truly understand. So that's why I said, my loved one, my father, my mom, it seems they were this, they were that. First of all, always assume the best about someone's life. Assume the best. Unless you're certain about something, the best thing you can do is to try to help them. Let's say if you know they've done something wrong. They're your family, you know them better. You know that they owe someone. Maybe they broke someone's heart. Maybe they didn't do their salat. So the best thing is to help them, to recover, to make up for it. But if it's not the case, then assume the best. When you look at Imam Hussein himself, physically he's in pain. But the moment that he's leaving this dunya, you see the peaceful. And we have in one of the historical sources, one of the enemies said, as Imam Hussein was in his final moments, I swear to God, I saw no one more beautiful and more at peace than Hussein at the time of his death. That's from someone from outside. So not every criminal is going to have a painful, gruesome death. Not, as I said, every oppressor is going to be Fir'aun, to be drowned and to become an example. Again, once as a sign, as a miracle, as an exception, Allah makes the rule. Otherwise, then people's belief will not be based on choice. Let's say if everybody who lies, suddenly there is a lightning. Everyone who lies, all of you know the Pinocchio story, right? Imagine if our nose was getting longer. It was not a choice anymore not to lie. Right? It was not a choice. I know what's happened. That's the reason we care so much about people's opinion. We do certain things and we don't do certain things because people see us. We're not really free in that sense. You can see even some writers and authors, there's a book called Determined. And he makes the entire case that in reality, no one is truly free. He says that every decision we make is kind of a result of the construct of society, the environment, the family. Of course, we're not going to go to that extent, but the point is that when we are in public, when we are in our own lives, Allah doesn't want to make an example out of every sin. Oh, you committed this sin, this is the punishment. Oh, you were a tyrant, you're going to have a gruesome death to make an example. There is no more free will. There should be a choice. A lot of young people, again, they were taught this way. Oh, if you don't wear hijab, if you don't wake up for your fajr, if you don't do your fast, sometimes as out of the intention is good, it's out of the kindness of their heart, but parents sell a lie. And so if you don't do this, then something bad happens to you. If you don't pray, if you don't wear hijab, then this will happen and that will happen. And then they give a story, there was a girl who did this and they didn't listen to their parents and they got into this problem. No. You may break all the rules and Allah give you time. And Allah says, you know what? Do as you please. إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا. Sometimes Allah said, we extend your time, we do not bother you with your sins, in order for you to add and accumulate more sins. This is the ayah that Sayyidina Zainab recited to Ibn Ziyad when he tried to say that, oh, God did this to you. And look, we won, and there's, basically your family's death was the punishment of God, and look at us, we're victory, that's the reward of God. And then Sayyidina Zainab recited this ayah, that sometimes Allah just gives more time, more freedom to the zalim, to the unjust. Not because they deserve it, not because they're on the right path, no, because they're in a position that they're a lost cause. Allah leaves them on their own. So a mu'min, we have in the hadith of Ahlul Bayt, the death for them It's so easy, it's so pleasant. When you hear Qasim alayhi salam says, death to me is like honey, it's not just a figure of speech. It's truly for them, death is easy. We have an example of Israel alayhi salam came to Ibrahim alayhi salam. Said, Ya Ibrahim, this is the time. And we have that Israel said to Ibrahim alayhi salam, but you are a prophet of God. I was tasked to ask you first, do you want to leave this dunya or not? That was, by the way, the same with our prophet. The prophets of God are not like our situation that death comes and just take them. These are the receiver of revelation. These are the receiver of Jibreel. So archangels such as Israel, the angel of death, asks first. So we have that Ibrahim told them, O angel of death, O my brother, can you tell me which Khalil meaning a close friend, which Khalil and which close friend will take the soul of his friend or make his friend die? So we have that Israel now has to wait for the answer from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the answer came, said, tell Ibrahim which Habib, which is another word for friend or beloved, do not like to be reunited with his friend. So if you look at it, depending on the perspective, that death, the first question is, which friend will make his friend die? The second one said, which friend does not like to get reunited with his friend? That's what death is. And we have that Israel to the mu'min, Israel telling them the talqeen. You know that we usually say it's recommended to help the one who's dying to do the talqeen, say the kalima, say the shahada. But for a mu'min, for righteous, Israel is the one teaching them to say the talqeen. And in many narrations said that Israel and the angel of death is much kinder to the people who's taking his soul, to the mu'min, than the kindness of the mother to the child. We think of the Israel as that, scary being. No, it's the scary thing is our actions. It's the type of death we prepare for ourselves. It's not that Israel chose to be a scary. It depends how we want to see him, how we want to welcome him. So based on that, we can see, first of all, do not judge the comfort or the difficulty of death based on what is leading to death, the cause of death. It's not it. Because based on that, some of the prophets of God and Ahlul Bayt has a very difficult death. But what we're referring to an easy death. Allahumma inni as'aluka rahata 'inda al-maut. We're seeking that comfort at the time of death. We're not talking about the cause. We're talking about that actual transition. I don't like this analogy, but again, it is what it is. For men, it makes sense. If you ever had a band-aid, you can have a band-aid and somewhere, people like us, especially from Middle East and subcontinent, with a lot of beautiful hairs that we have, if you put it somewhere that there's no hair, when you want to pull it, it's not that painful. But if it is, then the pain is memorable. Death for some people is easy because there's no much attachment. They already knew that they're musafir, they're a traveler, they're in transition. They did not, destroy all their luggage for the sake of building something that is not going to last forever. So for them it's easy. It's like ripping a band-aid. To some people, it's like that you crazy glued it to your skin. Oh, I love this dunya, and I was planning to do this, and I was planning to build an empire, and I want this, and how much I lied and cheat my way to get there. Of course, death won't be difficult. So death for a moment is easy. And we see none of the prophets of God, none of them, at the time of death, they wish to come back. Even the one of the most difficult. And don't judge the death from the outside. Don't judge, this person's eyes was closed, that's why they were peaceful. They were a mu'min. That person's eyes was left open, that's why they were a bad person. No. We've been told the reason you see some people's eyes are closed and some people's eyes are wide open is because when death comes to the average man, to the non-prophet, non-ma'soom, death does not allow them to even close their eyes. So if the eyes are already open, the soul takes it left open. If the eyes is closed, they don't get the chance to open it before the soul is being taken. That's all it is. Our job is not to try to become, a calculator of, oh, this is a sign of this person being a good person or not. The only one who can judge a dead person is Allah. We're being warned to speak ill of a dead. When we speak of the tyrants and oppressors, no. Allah is still ill of Fir'aun forever. Because the moment I say we should not speak ill of the dead, suddenly everybody remembers why we speak ill of Yazid. Why we speak ill of the other killers of Imams. This is not the same thing of speaking of someone who was not a murderer of the Imam. He was a community member, you may not like them as much, maybe you have some memories, some bitter memories with them, do not speak ill of them. But for the one who was a tyrant, for somebody who took away the guidance of humanity, the one who killed the Prophet or killed an Imam, then it's not the same story. Allah speaks of Fir'aun in the Quran. Allah speaks of Nimrud in the Quran. Many other villains, Allah speaks of them. Because they're not your regular average individuals that they may have some mistake and some good. No, these are the ones that choose to seal their fate in the worst possible way. Yazid, the path he chose is not the path of like someone who missed their Fajr and maybe they lied here and did the gossip over there. No. They murdered, if not tens of thousands, thousands of innocent people. The likes of Mitham and Tamar and many companions of the Prophet were murdered by his work. Some of these people, they died in their prisons. There were thousands of innocent men and women in prisons. So do not confuse, not speaking of the dead, do not speak ill of the dead, of average people around us versus a tyrant, versus an oppressor, versus someone who their position was very public. Their tyranny was public. So the question is, how can we have an easy death? A comfortable death. Allahumma inni as'aluka rahata 'inda al-maut. How can we have that rahat and that comfort at the time of death? The first thing is the ayah recited from Surah Al-Hijr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. And worship your Lord until there comes to you the certainty, death. The way that we can have an easy death, comfortable death, is to live with Iman. And when we say Iman, it's not to read more books, it's not to listen to more lectures. These are good, but ultimately practice, amal, action. Because one is knowing and acting. And the way death becomes easy when I follow what I know, when I practice what I know. That's what it makes the death easy. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Iman and good deeds goes together. The misunderstanding is, when you act without Iman, obviously is incomplete. When you have Iman without action, is incomplete. I could memorize hundreds of hadiths, I could be very intellectual, I could do many arguments, philosophy and everything, but at the end of the day, it matters my good deeds. What have I done? I believe in God, I believe in the Day of Judgment, I believe in ethics, I believe in values. What have I done? Did I practice it or not? Knowing is not enough. My lectures, at the end of the day, is not going to be something, so oh, this is it, the lecture. It's the action after this lecture that makes the difference. Same as for everyone. As parents, giving advice to your children is one thing. The action that you do after that is another thing. They're complementing each other. So yeah, that if you want an easy, comfortable transition to the next life, make sure to live with Iman. So let's say at the time of death, we said, what is the transition state called? Sakarat al-maut. Disorientation. When death comes, someone is not on the right mind. So when we're in the right mind, when we are in that stage of being disoriented, what do you think we remember? What we have done for a lifetime. What we have done repetitively, consecutively, consistently. That's what we will remember. If it's something, in other words, death, what it does, it makes us pour out what we truly are. That's it. Because with death, there's no filter. I'm leaving this dunya. There's no one that I care and their opinion. I'm going to present myself better because now all the veils are removed. I'm going to be my true self. So my true self is corrupt. That's what I show. You see people who are drunk. Again, I don't see much of them, but again, what we exposed to a bit of it here and there. They start saying things that they cannot keep secret. They start pouring out whatever they want. So to those of them, you saw a lot of the infidelities that happens is when people are drunk. Why? Because they're not in the right mind. Because to them it's not a primary matter. That's what the money is. Money, to my understanding, does not corrupt people. I've heard them say money corrupts, power corrupts. I've heard of it. But my understanding is that money enables us to show our true self. That's all it does. If somebody is a pity individual, when they get the money, they show the pittiness. Otherwise, they censor themselves. If somebody is a hateful, hold grudges, that's what money does. Now, I have no reason to hold back. Same as with death. Death makes us to show our true character. So how we can have an easy transition? Make the action of Iman to make eventually change us from within. That's who I am. I don't pretend anymore. That's who I am. At the time of death, that's what I show. There's a very, very big concept. How can we then? Just imagine when you have a hammer and you have a nail. You need, it's depending how strong and how, resistant is the surface that you try to use the nail against. It needs multiple, maybe sometimes hundreds of strength until you make sure it goes through. Iman is like that nail, and the action is the hammer. This qalb, this qalb gets hard. The more I sin commit, the harder it is to Iman to get to it. The more good deeds I do, the easier it is for Iman to penetrate. These are analogies, none of them are physical, obviously. Do not pick up any nail or anything in anywhere, right? So it's important to know that the way death becomes easier when my lifestyle is the lifestyle of, we call ubudiyya, servitude. I do business, I remember Allah. I talk to my family, I remember Allah. I want to forgive people, I remember Allah. When I spend money, I remember Allah. When I make money, I remember Allah. That's become part of my life. So at death, I remember Allah too. But if I don't remember Allah, the rest of it, only I remember at the salat time. The chances are it will be more difficult. Because until I get to that point, I have to go through all the other attachment, all the other distractions. Second thing that makes death easy is the love of Prophet and his family, Muhammad and Ali Muhammad alayhi salam. And we mentioned why? Because we will be resurrected with what we love. Prophet said, everyone will be resurrected with who or whatever they love. And Prophet said, if you love a rock, you will be resurrected with the rock. If you love Prophet, you will be resurrected with Prophet. يَوْمَ نَدْعُو كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. The day of judgment, Quran says, is the day that everybody will be resurrected with their imam, whoever they chose as their leader. If my imam was dunya, who I will be resurrected with. If my imam was Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, this is who I will be resurrected with. So if you want an easy transition, love those who are ready for this journey. Like you find a very professional guide of this journey. How beautiful Imam Ali said, Saluni qabla an tafqiduni. He gathered his people and the community and said, people ask me before you lose me. أنا أعرف بطرق السماء من طرق الأرض. I am more knowledgeable to the path of heavens than the path of earth. I know more about heaven than the knowledge of this earth. And they mocked him. They insulted him. When somebody grows with Ali, this is what Prophet said. Shia and Sunni agree on this. حُبُّكَ إِيمان. Ya Ali, your love is faith. وَبُغْضُكَ كُفْرٌ. And your hatred is disbelief. This love, it should be a real love. Love meaning when you love someone, you care about what they want. Not the toxic love that some people have, right? They call it love. So I love you, but you have to do as I please. I love you, but I want you to do this. It's always one-sided. But the true love is, I'm ready to make sacrifice because I love this person. I love my children. I hope you don't ask your 5-year-old, your 10-year-old, what are you going to do in return for me? As a mother, you love your children. You're not going to say, oh, I've been staying awake all these nights. By your bedside, tell me when you're going to write the check. So when you say, I love Imam Ali alayhi salam, I love Prophet, it doesn't mean, oh, I love them the way I dictate. I love them and I ask what they want. How they want me to live. When I make a decision, I ask myself, what would be something that Imam Ali and Prophet would approve of? What kind of business? What kind of akhlaq? What kind of community? What kind of marriage? What kind of parenthood? And once we are aligned with them, then the death will be an easy transition. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our life to be the life of servitude and ubudiyyah until we meet our Creator and we return to Him. And may Allah make our transition from this dunya to be on raha, on comfort and ease, inshallah. Wa salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا نبي الله يا خير خلق الله يا خاتم النبيين يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشرعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. And the final hours of the life of Prophet, few people were around Prophet. Among them was Hassan and Hussein. And they were children, and they were so attached to Prophet that even at the time of his illness, they would always by his side, and sometimes they would even lay down and they put their head on the chest of Rasulullah. So we have that they tried to pull them away. Said Rasulullah is sick, you're putting your weight on his chest, you're disturbing him, and they tried to pull them away. And we have that Rasulullah hardly opened his eyes, and he said, leave them alone, let them be. That when I smell them, their fragrance is a fragrance of Jannah and heaven to me. Among the people who was grieving the most, it was his daughter Sayyidah Fatima. And we have that she was saying, Ya Rasulullah, after you and after your presence, I lost my mother when I was 5 years old. Fatima became orphan at the age of 5. But from that time, she was not only a daughter for Rasulullah, she was a daughter and a mother. Abiha, the mother of her father. So we have that she was weeping, crying. And for the entire time that Rasulullah was on the bed and he was ill, she did not smile, except the last time Rasulullah told her something that she smiled. And Ali alayhi salam came forward and said, "O daughter of the Messenger of God, tell me what the Messenger of God told you that brought you that joy." And she said, "Ya Ali, my father told me, O Fatima, don't mourn too much, that the first of my family to join me will be you. That no one else's loss will be experienced by you. So get ready for the calamities that will be befalling you." Ya Rasulullah, in those final moments, you comforted your daughter Fatima Zahra. On those final moments, you did not allow anyone to separate Hassan and Hussein from you. But when they brought the body of Imam al-Hassan, this beloved of you, after Imam was poisoned, after he was martyred, his wasiyah was to be buried next to Rasulullah's grave. And as they brought the body of Imam al-Hassan, there were those who did not approve of this, and they did not allow the body of Imam al-Hassan to be buried by Rasulullah's side. Not only that, they even escalated to violence. They ordered archers to target the coffin of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. And as the violence erupted, Imam al-Hussein said, "People, remember, my brother told us he does not want this. Let's take his body to the Baqi cemetery." So they brought the body of Imam al-Hassan to the Baqi cemetery. Which Baqi? That if you can imagine right now, in the Baqi cemetery, there is no Za'ir, especially when it comes to the time that is not Hajj. There's not that many visitors for the graves of the Imam Ahlul Bayt. That they were gharib and madloom in this life, and even their graves is madloom right now. They brought the body of Imam al-Hassan and they prepared a grave in Baqi cemetery. And Imam al-Hussein picked up the body of his brother and they placed it inside the grave. And he was saying, "Wa Muhammadan wa Aliya." Oh my grandfather Rasulullah, oh my father Ali, welcome my brother coming to you. Oh my mother Fatima, soon my brother will be coming to you. And then he recited this, who is the one who is at great loss? Not the one that they stole his life, not that the one who took away his mal and wealth, but the one who is being robbed from having a brother like Hassan. Oh my brother Hassan, how can I go through the calamities of this dunya after you? And we have at that moment, they respectfully buried the body of Imam al-Hassan. Imam al-Hussein sat by the grave, he cried, he mourned, and eventually recited Quran and left the body of Imam al-Hassan. وَاللَّهُ يَوْمِكَ يَوْمِكَ يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. All the calamities, all the musibah, Ahlul Bayt said, remember Hussein. This is their advice. Even Imam al-Hassan said, if you want to cry, then cry for Hussein. How is it? Because when you look at the time of Shahada of Imam al-Hussein, on the final moments by the side of Imam al-Hassan, it was Imam al-Hussein, it was Abu Fadl Abbas, the family were present. But when Imam al-Hussein was on the ground, when he was on the ground of Karbala, he opened his eyes, there is no Abbas left, there is no Awn and Ja'far, there is no Ali al-Akbar. When he opened his eyes, he saw shrimp sitting on his chest. And we have that Sayyidah Zainab was watching, and she looked, when she was looking at the qatil, the killer, and she was looking at her brother. And as Imam al-Hussein saw her sister, he looked at her and said, "Ya ukhta, irji'i ila al-fustat." Oh my sister, go back to the tent, go back to the camp. I don't want you to be among these strangers. وعلى لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Ya Allah, we ask you by the honor of our Prophet, by the honor of the mercy for mankind, to hasten and return of the Baqiyatullah, the last saving of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, the Imam of our time, Imam Sahih al-Asr wal-Zaman. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless the soul of all of our mu'mineen, all the mu'mineen and mu'minat, and grant them maghfirah and forgiveness. Ya Allah, we ask you to provide and grant immediate relief for all the oppressed, all the madhumeen, especially for madhumeen of Palestine and Gaza, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala humiliate and punish the zalimeen and tyrants and oppressors in dunya and akhirah. And may Allah grant all those with hajat, strength of iman, wisdom of sabr and patience, and ultimately grant them and fulfill the hajat that is for the khair and the good of their dunya and akhirah. Let's remember all these marhumeen: Sayyid Hassan Ali, Zahra Begum, Sayyid Hussein Yar Khan, Sayyid Kazim Hassan, Sayyid Asif Hassan, Sayyid Zakir Ali, Sakina Muhsin, Muhsin Ali Mirza, and Ziba Sajwani with Surah Fatiha and Salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.